This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Tim Serber.
Well, thanks, Charlie, for introducing me again, and everybody. I appreciate you joining us. I have a great guest with me today, someone I've known for a while. I've got a lot of respect for, and he's just an awesome dad. He's really making a great life for his son, and he's got some new things going on, and he's running for judge. Met him when he ran for the I believe it was a school position, school council. And now we're talking about a very important position, Superior Court 1 judge. So welcome, Jerry E. Smith. Jerry, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, Tim. Thank you very much for inviting me on your podcast.
We're excited to have you. This is something new for me, too. I don't normally do political things, but I really would like to see you get this position. And if Lisa and I can help you, podcast, hopefully it will give you some help. So we're going to go into some things, Jerry. You hold both a law degree and an accounting degree from IU, and you graduated sixth in your class with high distinction. Very impressive, because I didn't even make it out of college. How does that dual background in law and finance give you an edge at the bench of the Superior Court 1?
Well, Superior Court 1 covers a lot of different areas, civil and criminal, business, family law. And so having a solid business background, I think, will be a good addition to our local court system. I've worked for large Fortune 100 companies, Dow Chemicals Consumer Products Division, and Thomson, which made RCA TVs back in the day. I'm not sure they're still making those, but
I don't think.
So anyway, I've been a financial analyst, a cost accountant, and internal auditor. And as an internal auditor, I got to see these companies from the top down, and it just is a pretty broad base of business experience I think I can bring to the court.
Yeah, and I was impressed when you were running for the school board and the questions that you answered in one of the live events. So I find you to be a very interesting, smart, intelligent person. And with your background, I mean, you work as a deputy attorney general, child support prosecutor, general practice attorney, and a small business owner. Which of these roles do you think shaped your judicial philosophy and why?
Well, they've each shaped them in different ways, but as a private practice attorney doing a general practice, you get to see up close and personal, both on your small and large cases, how it affects your clients and the pressure of being in a lawsuit. And I did primarily the non-criminal stuff. I did a little criminal when I was interning in school, but criminal cases obviously have a huge amount of pressure on people. The longer they take, the more pressure that is on a person. But the civil cases have an equal amount of pressure, just hangs over your head. And a case that, is fairly easy and should get wrapped up in 3 to 6 months, it can get continued out 2 or 3 times or 6 times. And all of a sudden you're 2 or 3 years into it and your client's having physical effects from the emotional and mental toll that's having on them. And I believe justice delayed is justice denied. And we need to get these cases decided and get them to a final hearing as soon as possible to get that weight off of the people in the courtroom so that they don't have that pressure on them, causing them to have, health issues, and just, you don't need that stress in your life. People need to be able to move on with things.
And you've been very outspoken about that. And I've heard you say before, justice delay is justice denied. What specific changes would you make? I can't say day one, but as soon as you get in, to move cases through Superior Court 1 faster. Well,
I've been in court quite a bit. Not as much recently because I've been doing more administrative law with the Attorney General, but I would, number one, at the beginning of a case, you can set up a case management order and get a calendar set up. And so I'll be asking the attorneys some questions that I don't think normally get asked by most judges. I'm going to be asking them, how long is it going to take you to get through the evidence? Because they need to have enough time to get through the evidence, but they shouldn't have 6 times as much time as they need to get through the evidence. If they have a request for continuance, they need to have a good reason for it. It shouldn't be, something came up, if they're in the hospital, that's one thing. If it's a constitutional issue, that's one thing. But if it's just for a little bit of extra convenience, they're inconveniencing their clients and leaving that pressure hanging over them. And I just want to, get it to a final hearing as fast as I can.
And you describe yourself as an originalist, believing the law should be read in the context of when it was written. Can you give our listeners a real world example of how that approach would affect a ruling in a typical Morgan County case?
Well, I think both in our Constitution and in our laws and most of our historical court cases before the last, 10 years or so, you had race, religion, national origin, immutable characteristics, or like in the case of religion, things that you shouldn't really expect somebody to have to change because the government wants you to. And those were the things that mattered. Now, a recent case in Morgan County here was our schools having to put in special bathrooms for gender neutral when the law is originally written that was based on, it was male and female. It had nothing to do with gender changing, and that shouldn't have been allowed to happen. Now, that was pushed by the federal government by executive orders saying how you have to interpret the law, which completely changed it from the original intent, and I think stretched it beyond what Congress intended when they passed it and the president at the time signed it. And so you got to look at how's it fit in when it was originally made, because that's what those people were trying to pass laws on. They weren't trying to pass laws on things that they had no way of knowing this was going to be happening at this time.
Yeah, and they had no idea of what those things are. I mean,
if they saw what was happening today in these areas, they would have put it in the Constitution that it couldn't happen.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that's really important, because I think, a lot of people have lost faith in the judicial system. And I think it's important to try to bring that back into the original format, which is, I think that will give everybody the comfort and the peace knowing that our judicial system's working like it should. You once navigated a complex bankruptcy reorganization to shield a small business owner's home and assets from predatory competitor, I believe. Walk us through how that experience and what it tells us about how you handle a civil case on the bench.
Well, in a bankruptcy situation, especially at the beginning, things need to happen pretty fast. You need to get things put in place to protect your client. The longer it sits out there, usually the worse their situation is. And so, as a judge, I'll be, for these business cases, if I have a business case come in, I'll be doing my best to quickly get the things decided that need to be put in place, the guardrails to keep creditors from just destroying a person who's trying to protect their home and their business. Now, I've had a couple. The one I think you're talking about is a larger case I had that was for a business owner up in Kokomo. But I've done a smaller case for local business and was able to protect a large portion of his business. And I actually just ran into him yesterday when I was putting signs out, and it was really good to see him again. And he was very appreciative of where he ended up at with keeping part of his business and his home intact. And and it was really kind of heartwarming to me to have a former client that I hadn't seen for a couple of years, and the case was probably 10 years ago, come up and just shake my hand and say, "Yeah, put my sign in. I'm going to tell all my friends." So I thought that was great.
Nice. Well, when you save somebody, when you save their lifestyle or their home or whatever, they're going to be appreciative to you for, I think, forever. And I think that's the type of person you are. You genuinely care about your clients and the people involved, and not just the people right there, but how it affects everybody. An example of that is how you handle a $7 million multi-estate with heirs fighting over everything, and 5 years or so before a decision was made. But in the end, everybody was real happy. Or happy with the results, we'll say. What does that outcome say about your ability to bring people to resolution?
One thing I've seen is with the states, I've seen families that never argue about anything. They always get along great. Give them something to argue about. beyond belief. And it can rip a family apart, which again is something you want to get done quickly, because the longer it festers out there, the harder the feelings are. And you do the right thing, and you hope that the people that they're trying to set it up so that they get a better deal than they should in relation to the other heirs, at the end will see that you did the right thing and you didn't hurt them in an unfair way. You just didn't give them everything they wanted, but you gave them everything that was fair. And I think that's as a judge or as an attorney helping run an estate, that's what you need to do. You just do the right thing the best you can. And most of the time people are reasonable. Every now and then you'll get someone who will never be reasonable, but you just do the right thing.
Right. And that kind of goes with the next question. And I really like this, but you said you believe in treating people at least a little better than they deserve, which that's a memorable phrase to me. What does that look like, particularly when someone is standing in front of you on the worst day?
Well, probably my best example is from personal experience. I was involved with these folks who sold me some property and leased it back when I was doing more real estate investing and not much else. And after a few months, they decided they didn't want to keep paying me the leases, so they started filing bankruptcies. And this was part of what led me into being a bankruptcy attorney, was everything I learned from this. And they filed 6 bankruptcies in 2 years, which is really illegal, but it was able to slide through the system. Now, the last 2 bankruptcies didn't have much effect, but we would show up in court, and at the end of the 4th bankruptcy, which is the one where I basically slammed the door shut on them, being able to drag things out any farther, and successfully anyway. They're, come on, Jerry, let's make a deal. I'm like, I was polite to them. I was nice to them. And I treated them like human beings, even when I really didn't feel like it, because of everything they'd put me through personally. And going back to, you mentioned my deputy prosecutor and child support. I always tried to treat every single person in there, from the person who always paid their support on time to the person who it was like pulling teeth to get them to pay anything. I always treated them like human beings, and I got lots of compliments about how they felt like I was the first person they'd run into that just treated them like a person. And even though I was asking them or getting the judge to order them to do hard things, they still respected me and shook my hand afterwards. And I always shook their hand afterwards, even when I had to hit somebody really hard with something to get them to pay, and gave them, several chances, but you got to keep it moving for the person that needs that support for their kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what really, in my opinion, really sets you apart. You have a very strong drive to do what's right and to treat people with respect. And I think that's really important nowadays, because you don't see a lot of that out there a lot, and I think the internet's ruined a lot of that. But, I think that's an important thing. Now, you've been a Morgan County resident for 18 years, a member of the Bar Association for over 20, an active in the Elks Lodge and your church community. So how does that deep community roots factor into the kind of judge you'll be?
Well, when I first came to Morgan County, it was more of as an investor. And then because of the timing of the real estate crash, the house that I bought down here and invested in, I ended up moving into while I fixed it up. And you start getting to know the people, like my next door neighbor. Betty Ann Brill was my first Martinsville friend. And, you meet people that took me under their wing. Patty Coffin was probably one of my best Martinsville friends before she passed away a few years ago. And she was like my big sister. And they just made me part of the community and introduced me to all their friends like I was family. And Morgan County, and Martinsville specifically, is a very special place. And I don't think you get this everywhere. And I love the way I was treated when I came down here. And I love watching my son grow up and make friends with all the neighbor kids and be able to play and stuff. And it's safe to not worry too much when you're, out at the clubhouse or whatever, letting them run around. You don't have to wonder what's going to happen to your kids. And Morgan County is beautiful. We got beautiful rolling hills and lots of nature here. And we have a lot of people who are good people that care about the community. And when things get rough, people will come out and vote and do the right thing for the county, and they'll do what they need to do to make sure that our home stays a really great place to live.
Well, Jerry, our time's about up, but I want to get to one last question. You're a widower. You're raising an 8-year-old son. You've been a prosecutor, a private attorney, a CPA, a real estate investor. So in plain terms, why Morgan County? Why this court, and why now?
Okay, well, why Morgan County? I think I pretty well said that with my last answer. I love Morgan County. I love the people down here. I try to support the businesses down here and some of the charities. You can't support them all, but you can sure try. I love my church. I love my neighborhood, and I just want to keep it great. And I love the atmosphere my kid's growing up in. I don't ever plan on leaving, and I hope that he'll stay here when he's an adult as well. And as far as the court, the court, comes up every now and then. My opponent was appointed by Governor Holcomb. Everybody should have an opponent, at least their first chance, so that the people have a choice of who they want as judge, and they can, dig into my background and they can dig into my opponent's background, and hopefully in the end they'll think I've got a better background to be a judge, and that's pretty much it.
Well, I tell you, Jerry, you definitely have our votes. We're not ashamed to mention that. And I really do believe you have a great opportunity, and the thing is, if you don't make it the first time, you can always do it the next time. And, I think you have a political career in you. And what I like about you is you're a genuine, wonderful person. And I think you have values and standards that are extremely important to have in a judge position. So, you know what? I wish you the best of luck. I'm hoping that you'll go to invite me to your victory party when it happens. And I'm sure it will be there at the clubhouse if you have it. And looking forward to seeing you on that and seeing your political career grow.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate you giving me some time with your audience. And I just want to say thank you very much.
I appreciate it, Jerry. You have yourself a wonderful evening.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpmorgancounty.com. That's gnpmorgancounty.com. Or call 317-743-2058.